Hi there guys, I hope you have had a good day. Now, Adam Smith has explained there has been dialogue between him and Tyson Fury, but ultimately Tyson Fury doesn't want to do an interview with Sky Sports at the moment because there is nothing to announce and nothing to talk about, especially considering Sky Sports is the home of Anthony Joshua. BT Sports is the home of Tyson Fury. So there aren't different broadcasters, so there's not really much point talking to Sky Sports because they don't have a fight made with Anthony Joshua and a dual promotions sorted out between Sky Sports and BT Sports. So ultimately at the moment, Tyson Fury is going on to fight Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua is going on to fight Kubrat Pulev, and eventually Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua will be fighting one another. That is when Tyson Fury will go on to Sky Sports and talk about it because there is something to talk about. But it is interesting to see that Adam Smith and Tyson Fury do have dialogue and go back and forth, because I think that Adam Smith is a big fan of Tyson Fury and he hasn't tried to hide that in the past when he talks about Tyson Fury. I don't think he's such a big fan of Anthony Joshua. I think he's more so a fan of Tyson Fury, although he does respect AJ, of course, and AJ is on Sky Sports. But I think that Tyson Fury is probably the favourite fighter of Adam Smith, especially in the heavyweight division. But still, obviously Anthony Joshua is the Sky Sports fighter, Tyson Fury is the BT Sports fighter. And at some point, both broadcasters will have to come together if they want to make this big mega fight happen for Undisputed. And it can happen. I mean, there's no reason why it can't. There is a dual promotions deal anyway where you can get BT Sports on Sky Sports, and I believe you can get Sky Sports on BT Sports. I'm not too sure about that one. So there are ways in which these two companies can work together. They are rivals, but they're not rivals in the sense that they're not willing to put that aside to make big fights or big football matches or things like that. Mega events, sporting events. They're happy to come together to make those things happen. Now, Adam Smith did explain that it looks positive considering there is contact between Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, because they both are going to meet up and have a date or something. I don't know what they're doing, but ultimately they're going to meet up, have a talk, and maybe make some of these big fights happen. Maybe it won't be Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury to start with, but I mean, like Yard Buatsi, obviously that won't happen this year because Buatsi is fighting Kalic and Yard will be fighting Lyndon Arthur. So hopefully that fight could happen maybe next year. But there are many other fights that need to be made between Frank Warren fighters and Matchroom fighters. Hopefully that can be done. And Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, hopefully that's one of them. Because I think that sometimes rivalries between promoters and broadcasters gets too much and it's the fighters and fight fans that suffer as a result. We just want to see the big fights. We don't care who promotes them. We care about the big fights happening. I mean, who cares who promotes Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua as long as the fight happens? So ultimately that needs to be put aside for the bigger picture, for the bigger fights, especially when you consider that Yard Buatsi would be a huge fight in the light heavyweight division. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, the biggest fight in the heavyweight division. In fact, the biggest fight in world boxing. So that fight needs to happen. Yard Buatsi needs to happen. Conor Benn versus Chris Jenkins are going to happen. So this meeting between Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, let's hope it goes well. Let's hope it's positive. And let's hope we can get these big fights made. Because Dana White said something very interesting about boxing, because obviously he's UFC hoping to come over to boxing. He said that boxing needs a time where they build it. It needs to be invested in. It seems like every single big fight is like a going out of sale party and they need to try and make as much money as they can to get out of boxing. He said it seems like that every time there's a big event in the sport of boxing. You can't really get that with matchroom shows. It doesn't seem like that. And Fight Camp does kind of show that Eddie Hearn is willing to now invest in the sport of boxing. And given his current schedule as well, with or without fans, these big fights are still happening. Usyk Chisora, Alexander Povetkin, Dillian White, and Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev. So these big fights are still there to be made even with or without fans for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. They still want to do it and they are willing to foot some of the bill if they cannot make enough money to pay for the event. So that is investing in the sport of boxing, and Dana White has said that that is vital for this game. You cannot expect to just keep making money off these events. At some point, you have to reinvest in the sport. And one way they can continue to grow this sport and take it back to where it was before is cross promotions and cross broadcaster fights, like Matchroom fighters versus Queensberry fighters, like Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Because if these big fights do not happen, then the heavyweight division, boxing as a whole, it just stagnates. Now, interestingly enough, Tyson Fury, when talking about Anthony Joshua and asked about Dillian White, he said he's not interested in Dillian White. Obviously, White has to beat Alexander Povetkin in order to be reinstated as a WBC mandatory, and hopefully get that shot at Tyson Fury, but Fury isn't interested in Dillian Whyte. He's only interested in the big fights. The Deontay Wilders, the Anthony Joshuas. But the Deontay Wilders, I think that's kind of run its course now. I think that we all do want to move on from a Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. This will be the third fight, and the first two were conclusive enough in my opinion to see that Tyson Fury is number one. He's better than Deontay Wilder. In that trilogy, Tyson Fury is always going to come out on top, unless Deontay Wilder lands one massive punch, which he can do, but it just doesn't have the same kind of dynamic anymore. It doesn't have the same kind of interest as especially Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. So given that, I think that December 19th for Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder needs to go ahead. Tyson Fury doesn't want to push it back anymore. I mean, Bob Arum was talking about making this fight in February 2021, obviously with a view to having crowds back and all of that, making more revenue from the gate. But Tyson Fury wasn't happy with that. He wanted to fight on December 19th. Frank Warren also wanted Tyson Fury to fight on December 19th. And I believe it's important to do that because Anthony Joshua will fight 1 week before Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder against Kubrat Pulev. So they are kind of aligned, meaning next year, maybe when Tyson Fury is fighting Dillian Whyte or Povetkin, Anthony Joshua will be fighting Alexander Usyk. Then after that fight, Undisputed can happen with both of them on a similar kind of schedule. So that is why Anthony Joshua is fighting without crowds and taking less money so that his career does not stagnate, so that he can continue to head towards Undisputed. Hopefully Tyson Fury does the same. I mean, it's not going to be great if they have to fight without crowds, and I don't think that Bob Arum will let it happen. I don't think that Tyson Fury will be allowed to fight without crowds. I mean, they've already come out and said they cannot do that fight without a live audience. So that is what is going to happen for Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. If they don't get a crowd, then they're going to look for a site fee somewhere away from the US and the UK, which is interesting, I guess, but ultimately, as long as the fight happens on December 19th, then the heavyweight division is not stagnating as a result of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, because that needs to be finished and capped off this year so that we can continue moving towards Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. That is very important at the moment for the heavyweight division, for Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, that they both fight in the prime of their career. So guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Adam Smith has explained that he has talked to Tyson Fury. He doesn't want to do an interview just yet because there is nothing to announce and nothing to talk about with regards to an Anthony Joshua fight, but hopefully there will be down the line. Guys, anyway, drop your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.